All right. We're going to give everybody just a minute to join. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. First, thanks everybody for joining today's sneak preview into Microsoft Fabric. From an Inspire Solutions standpoint, we're really excited about the platform. We think it's going to have a big impact on the market. My name is John Agnich. I'm the Vice President of Consulting Delivery here at Inspire Solutions. Co-hosting the event here today is Inspire's own Data and Analytics Practice Lead, Suraj Karunyamurthy. Suraj, you want to say hi?
Hey, thank you, John. Hello, everybody. Really excited. Just a quick intro about myself. Yes, I lead the practice here at Inspire Solutions. Been with Inspire Solutions for over 9 years, 13 years in total. I've been working on a lot of data warehousing projects and see a lot of customers moving into Fabric. Really excited for today. Thank you, John.
All right. And Oscar Zamora, Principal Architect with Microsoft.
Thanks, John, and thanks for inviting me to talk today to the crowd here. And I'm actually in Microsoft for over 5 years now, 5 years and a half, a principal architect for industry solutions, including migrations into Azure Fabric today. I used to work for Inspire Solutions before joining Microsoft. I used to be Tech Partners Consulting. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And if you could advance that slide, that would be great. And while he does that, I am just going to give you a quick background on Inspire Solutions, and won't take up too much of time, and we'll focus this on the Fabric event. So, as I said, my name is John Agnich. I lead a team of industry experts delivering solutions across all the practice areas that you do not see. I don't know why that's not. Oscar, did that advance for you?
It did. It's not advancing for you. Which screen? I'm sorry. Which slide do you see?
I see slide 1.
I'm on the slide 2 right now. I'm gonna try again, okay? Just give me 1 second.
And I'll talk through it while he deals with it. Maybe this was a good thing that I went first, so we'll deal with that technical difficulties here. I lead a team of industry experts across data and analytics, application services, quality engineering assurance, enterprise apps, cloud and infrastructure, and project management. As a practice, we do everything from providing individual consulting services, an individual person added to your team, all the way through full project delivery. We also do assessments as well. So really everything you'd expect from a solutions provider. For those unfamiliar with Inspire Solutions, so we are a national expert in delivering flexible technology and talent solutions. We have a national presence with 12 offices across the United States. You'll see there below our partnerships. We are technology agnostic. Don't really want to say that with Microsoft on the phone today, but we do approach our projects as technology agnostic, and you can see some of those partnerships that we have down there. To frame up the call today, if you have any questions, go ahead and put that question in the Q&A section, and then as we get to the end, if time permits, we will we'll go through those questions. If we don't get to that question, one of the presenters will follow up with you, and we'll get you that answer. So that's it as far as getting things going here. I'll turn it over to Oscar. Oscar, take it away.
Absolutely. I'm going to be moving now with the different slides. Let me know if they are actually showing as I flip them. Is that what you see now? Just wanted to make sure that's the case.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yes. That's good.
Okay, great. Okay, folks, and thanks again for joining. And yeah, I'm going to talk about Microsoft Fabric. Why is it a game changer? And certain differences of what we have published in the past here in Microsoft and all the services we have provided, and what is the value added on this new umbrella service that we are providing that is a SaaS solution. So what we are trying to perform or attempt is a complete analytics platform, right? not just a data warehouse, not just an ETL, but everything framed under the Microsoft Fabric umbrella, with multiple people attempting to use different services, including for data transformations and also for taking advantage of open lake architecture, right? So you have all these services provided to you, all your data in one place that can be read based, of course, on different criteria you provide to your Microsoft Entra, what used to be Azure Active Directory groups, for accessing the data on Open Lake architecture and Delta Lake, and also empowering users to leverage that data and leverage the power of AI or Copilot with the services that are within Microsoft Fabric. And we wanted to also make sure that that persistence of security and governance, it's across all those services you're going to be implementing in this one place. We want to make sure that a certain group of people has certain accesses for read, for write, or both, depending, of course, on the requirements of your business. Everything in one place. So if we go back to a typical implementation, right, we have all these different architectures from source and from the row zone, you know, the refine zone, that the gold schema, and of course the serving layers, right? You have all these different solutions, all the different implementations, PaaS services, IaaS services, in some cases SaaS services. We don't want that anymore, or we are trying to avoid this complex and fragmentation to happen in implementations going forward, right? And that's how Microsoft Fabric is attempting to fix these problems for you. So we are trying to be scalable. We are trying to have pretty much every single service within their fingertips, and just allowing you to fire up the ones you need inside Fabric, and purpose those to your users as needed. If you need Power BI over here, it's certain users to access it. If you need access to the gold layers on the warehouse aspect, you know, let's have this other group of users access it right from the same umbrella of services inside Fabric. So what is it actually comprised with? So we have, of course, governance and administration coming from the bottom, right? That's across the board. We want to make sure that you have only one source of truth. You want to make sure also that you can manage that source of truth with different services, and that's how we get into the data integration, which used to be Azure Data Factory in the past, but today we have Dataflow Gen 2, and of course Spark. Data engineering, which is of course more into the coding. If you want to actually leverage open source Spark, if you want to leverage the Scala, you can also now accomplish those tasks within Fabric. We're going to continue leveraging data warehousing and high compute engines to make sure that you can slice and dice your data from the data that is in the data lake store, or in this case on OneLake. Real-time analytics with CustoQL or KQL, data science, which allows you to fire up compute engines for actually analyzing your modeling or refining your models, and of course, business intelligence, which is sitting inside Fabric now as an extension of Power BI. So also wanted to express that on this scenario, sorry about the noise here. I don't know why people are calling me. Just give me 1 second, please. Sorry about that. So we also have AI assisted, meaning that even though your customers or your end users will be able to leverage your capacities, and you're transitioning from a SQL shop into now an open source shop, then we want to make sure that you have copilots in place that can help you with that coding, right? So that translation, we want to make sure that even though you might not know how to create a process for data cleansing, these copilots will allow you to generate the code for you to go after those processes. And the same goes for the data wrangler and all those features that we are adding within Fabric for you to leverage, right? We have the ability to allow shared workspaces. Maybe we have a workspace just for development, another workspace for QA, another for production, and so forth. Universal compute capacity is meaning that even though you're paying once, you can leverage that SKU for any of the services you want to fire up. You want to say, okay, for this payment I'm making per month or per year, it's actually per month or per hour, right? But you do it per month, usually the billings aspect. I want to make sure that only a % of it is used for data warehousing. This other is going to be used for data transformation and so forth. And again, one security, governance, and one lake. We wanted to make sure that the data is only stored once, and there is no need for you to copy data anymore. And we're going to get into those details in a second. All right, so just to get more into what is offered in Microsoft Fabric, right? Data Factory is an extension inside Fabric that allows you to actually manipulate your data two ways. One is just by using standard pipelines as you used to do in Azure Data Factory, but also we have taken the aspects of Power BI where you can actually have GUI steps on how to manipulate your data inside Fabric, and you're going to be able to have those opportunities of removing a column or maybe transform a column using this GUI interface right within Fabric, and that's what we call today Dataflow Gen 2. So that's now embedded. So if you want power users to leverage that aspect, they can. Other power users might want to leverage the pipeline aspect. Now, if you want to go in depth into data cleansing, data modeling, and additional aspects of that data processing, you have Synapse Data Engineering. You're going to be using Spark servers and open source Spark or Scala to perform those tasks for you, creating your notebooks that can also be shared. Synapse Data Science, leveraging AI and nodes for AI that actually allow you to fire up a compute for processing and refining models for any of the data science aspects or criteria that you wish to fire in your organization. You have the data warehousing, which I'm going to explain a little bit more in the next 2 minutes. Real-time analytics with CustoQL and Power BI, which of course you might already know. Now the data activator aspect has been launched recently, and it's really some kind of a trigger-driven type of tasks that you can accomplish inside Fabric based on data that is coming in or based on anomalies on data you're finding in your environment. Now, it's persona-centric, so meaning that you are going to be able to provide Power BI capabilities for PBI users, Data Factory capabilities for Data Factory users, and so forth. You might have personas that can encompass multiple of these roles, yes, but also you might want to maybe a segment as needed. So maybe you have a group of users that only use the Power BI aspect of it, so they are going to be able to just leverage Power BI aspect. Maybe there are power users that might want to perform Power BI on top of Dataflow Gen 2 because they want to manage their own Excel files that can be uploaded and used inside Microsoft Fabric. That's also possible. So we wanted to make sure that multiple personas, multiple roles are actually leveraging the proper SaaS solution that you might want to take from Microsoft Fabric. So you have the data integration. This is just an example. Multiple data sources. You can copy data from a ton of sources, including Amazon Redshift and all these sources you see listed in this slide, right? You're going to be able to, of course, leverage for Spark, leverage for the data warehouse, landing into Open Lake architecture, Delta Lake, etc. You have the data engineering aspect, where it's really I have the opportunity to write notebooks or allow Copilot to generate notebooks or code inside certain notebooks I need to create for data manipulation. You also have the data warehouse aspect, which I guess some of folks in the call are already familiarized, which is very similar to what Synapse Dedicated Pool has provided in the past. Is T-SQL, relies on T-SQL that is very close to what SQL Server runs today. And real-time analytics, which is really CustoQL behind the scenes, leveraging real-time data that is coming directly into Open Lake. Data science, which allows you to have this workspace where you can plug in your training and your models and refinements and maybe just explanations of those models. And finally, the Power BI aspect of it, right, which is already embedded. So just one more thing, right? It's Open Lake centric, no more copies of data. And I wanted to express one more aspect on the data warehouse, which is because this is one of the things that has been always discussed by customers, right? Once the data is in the database, there is no easy way to use it unless you connect and query the data. That's no longer the case. With Microsoft Fabric, if you are ingesting data into the warehouse, that same data is staying in Open Lake architecture. That data is in Delta Lake. You can have Spark processes. You can have other services connecting to that data that is in Open Lake architecture. And vice versa is also true, where you have data sitting in Open Lake that you want to leverage in your joins or leverage in your queries inside a Microsoft Fabric warehouse. You can also do that leveraging links. So the use of links allows you to make sure that one copy of the data exists, and you can leverage of any of the sources or services you might want to purpose depending on your requirements. And of course, with the proper grants and the proper permissions that you have provided to your end users and or groups that you have assigned. And with that, I will just allow Suraj to just continue with the demo. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. Thank you so much. Hello, team. Hey, just 1 second as I, oops, sorry, shared the wrong screen. Perfect. So hopefully everybody can see my screen. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So make sure I'm not on mute.
We can hear you.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Oscar. So just a quick overview on Fabric. Just like everybody said, just like how Oscar said, it's great product, great SaaS product, and I'm hearing a lot of customers interested in Fabric because of its nature of having all of the services within a single ecosystem. So very easy to have a Azure Fabric trial kicked off. So you could search for Azure Fabric online, and it does give you steps on how to create or get Azure account for free. And then, just dive in a bit about Fabric's architecture. I would say, for anybody who has worked with Azure before, we have two layers in Fabric. One is the capacity, and the other one is the storage engine behind it. And because of this unique ability, it's able to separate the compute from the storage that you use on your Microsoft Fabric workspace, which means that your processing power is going to be billed separately or at a rate, and your storage, which comes in a lot cheaper, which is about 2 cents per gigabyte, which they call the OneLake storage for Fabric. If there's a lot of services in Azure Fabric that uses or lake storage, for example, lake houses and big data, and of course, AI and ML. But they can use, some of these services which are heavily dependent on OneLake storage can be used with a very low cost. And if you need a more robust Spark engine, or if you need a more robust warehouse, then you could absolutely start off with the lowest capacity and then see how it pans out. And of course, you can increase your capacity units as you go. So very flexible pricing from Azure Fabric, starting from the lowest capacity of 2 all the way going to 2048. So just looking at the pricing a bit, it's 36 cents an hour, starting with the lowest, and goes up to 348, depending on how much you want to process at a given time. They also have great plans if you want to do a reservation. Like for example, if you commit for a year, you get a much cheaper cost. So that's pretty much the overview of how Fabric is built. So the separation of the compute from storage is is a bit of a game changer when it comes to a lot of the clients who are using on-premise, SQL Server Management Studio solutions, or if they have SQL Server deployed on managed instances, or if they have virtual machines. This is really, something that they want to go into the future so they can use the pay-as-you-go plan, and it's one of those features that our customers love the most about Fabric. So it's very easy to start up a Fabric account. Like I said, you have to go into Fabric and create an Azure Fabric account. And once you create the Fabric account, this is exactly the page that you would be looking in once you log into your Fabric app online. There's a concept called workspaces within Fabric where all of your services that Oscar said would reside here, starting from data flow Gen 2 for pipelines, or Lakehouse, Warehouse, or Power BI reports, where you have a great view of looking at all in one go, or even a better view if you're more technical, or if you want to know how these are connected to each. You can absolutely go with the lineage view in the Fabric workspace, which kind of starts off with some of these base concepts that Oscar was talking about, right? The Lakehouse concept, which is the origination for most of the big data needs that we have, or a warehouse, which is close to a SQL Server engine that you might know as of today. So there's the lineage to all of the rest of the services, like the report is, so two of these reports are indirectly connected to the Lakehouse, or this report is directly connected to the warehouse. So you would have a great view and see all the dependencies and interdependencies for a solution. So say, for example, a report developer joins the company and they want to understand, how is this report connected? Before, you had a lot of reverse engineering that you needed to do. You need to connect with the Azure data engineers and data modelers to understand the data flow, but everything is built within Fabric. They have this as a SaaS product where it's very easy to use, even for someone who has very low code experience. So this is the great offering on Fabric that we're starting to love. So going back to the list view, there's two ways you can create new services within Fabric. And a quick agenda about this demo would be on how easy it is to create a warehouse in Fabric. I don't know if everybody remembers, but 10 years ago, when I was deployed first time at Inspire, we had to spin up a SQL Server Management Studio, which took about a month and a half of planning, approvals, a lot of teams, and disaster recovery. We had to work on a lot of things before we spin up an actual warehouse for a particular team. But now it can be done in a couple of seconds, which is as easy as clicking on one of these new tabs and creating a warehouse and just giving it a name. Or you could also go into this Create tab to the left of the Fabric app workspace. And then here, they actually give you suggestions on what each of the services are for. So for example, the data activator that Oscar was talking about, these are actually triggers and alerts that you usually work with Power Flows, things that can help out your organization to understand, hey, if this data is being loaded, if not, let me send an alert beforehand. So, everybody's not notified when they log in at 9 a.m. in the morning. Certain individuals, the support team, can be notified a couple of hours in advance. So a lot of great features from the data activator within the Fabric service, and very importantly, data engineering aspect. I would say the existing approach was usually using Azure Data Factory or SSIS pipelines. But now, since we have the concept of a lakehouse, and we also have the inclusion of notebooks within Azure Fabric. So for data engineering, if you really want to work with big data solutions and work on machine learning models, absolutely working with Spark, Python, we have notebooks available that you can spin directly off of your tables in the data warehouse solution, which I'm going to demo very soon. Really great features, everybody. Just from keeping it simplified and unified is what I can say are the two most important words for Fabric, or any customers who are trying to look for why Fabric. And like I said, right, we have Data Factory existing for customers who are already on the cloud or on Azure. We have our Dataflow Gen 2, which is an upgraded version of both the pipelines and the Power BI data flow that we're currently used to creating with DAX formulas and also manipulations within. I'll show to everybody in a few minutes on Dataflow Gen 2 and how it looks. And of course, data science, I could talk another 30 minutes about this, but absolutely, there's so much to discover on creating ML models, experimenting, running, keep keep training the models. And then, of course, there's also a point where we can create generative AI and also some help of chatbots. So pretty cool stuff. And of course, the data warehouse solution that Oscar is talking about, if you're coming from a more SQL centric, if you have a team who's more comfortable with T-SQL and from a SQL Server standpoint, or from any T-SQL background, it is beneficial to go the route of a warehouse because the concept of stored procedures and tables and all of that is very, it is created on the warehouse, which just not a reference to the files like in the Lakehouse, which I'm going to present in the demo soon. We're also going to be, and there's also, Power BI, which is kind of the center of Azure Fabric. So they do have a lot of emphasis on the Power BI components that the other services can successfully produce, because at the end of the day, we have end consumers who are looking at paginated reports, dashboards, which is truly the KPIs and the game changers in every business. At the end of the day, most of the data boils down to these great looking dashboards and reports that we're going to present. So all of the above data engineering aspects are built around Power BI, just for the ease of flexibility on creating new data needs in the future, and also the support for streaming data sets, streaming data flows. I don't want to talk about the customer that we're engaging, but we have a huge gaming customer that we're engaging with who are dealing with a lot of streaming data sets and data flows, and they would love to understand on the fly what is going on with their data, understanding their usage of users from different parts of the world, just at different time zones, different times of the day, just to understand how we can work on replicating the application and working on load balancing and making sure everybody has a great experience on these games. So really great stuff. And we're trying to, they love Azure Fabric just for its capabilities and real-time analysis, like I said, event streaming, KQL databases, just like Oscar said, great capabilities within Fabric. So these are all the great, new services, everything under one umbrella called Fabric. And like I said, the workspaces is something where all of your services lie in, and you can either see the lineage or the list view. So let me quickly jump into how easy it is to load data into a warehouse. So once you create the warehouse here and you give it a name, you would have a blank warehouse that's created with a semantic model. Keep in mind, the semantic model can be directly referenced in any report. If anybody is used to creating Power BI reports, everything in Power BI needs to have a data set or a model that it references to for it to create the report. So with this, every time you create a warehouse or a lakehouse, you have a semantic model that gets created on the fly, and you don't have to do this separate. And then you can start creating Power BI reports, with just a click of a button from the warehouses. It's as simple as that is on creating a Power BI report. So, so let me jump into the warehouse. So this is so usually when the warehouse is created, you would not have anything. You would have like an empty stage. You would have an empty schema just with the DBO guest and information. So there's two ways you can load data into your warehouse. One is via T-SQL, and the other one is via the Dataflow Gen 2, like Oscar said, which is kind of the new data flow engine where we can bring in data from different source systems. So I was able, let me open the query that I used to load data or to populate this warehouse solution, right? So I was able to create a schema quickly on the warehouse using T-SQL, and then create a staging table for sales data. And I just, so now when I'm ready to copy the data from a different source, and when I say a different source, this blob storage account is on a completely different Azure tenant. That it's on a completely different Azure tenant. And why I did this is just to prove a point that if you have requests from customers saying, okay, I have data on different cloud providers, on multi-cloud providers. I have it on Amazon S3 buckets. I have it on a different Azure blob storage. Currently, we have a separate team who's trying to move that data over to your local blob engine, and then you're going to be working on consuming that into your data warehouse, right? But with this, you could call, as long as you have the credentials right, you should be able to reference this from a different blob, from any blob of your choice, from an Azure workspace. Like, you have your storage key, you have your secret, everything specified with a couple of delimiters and what kind of file that is. By running this copy command, you should be able to load the data from this CSV file located in a different Azure tenant into our data warehouse solution in under like a minute, as long as you have all the data needed. It's as quick as that. And once you're loaded the system, it's just like running any other SQL statement on using your existing SQL Server Management Studio. It's just like, or any other online application that you might be using. So once we load this data into the table in our warehouse solution, now it's very easy to create a report. As you can see, there's a button here, which I'm going to go in a little bit later on into the demo, but it's as simple as it is to load data into your warehouse that you just created a couple of minutes ago and create a Power BI report with a click of a button. Because keep in mind, the data sets are all created in the backend, so you don't need to create anything from scratch. So it's okay if I can show. So once you create the report, it's going to take all of those tables that you have, and then you can start plugging and playing. You can create your DAX queries, you can create your measures, and it is that easy to create a report. So let me close that for now. Getting back to our warehouse. So once you load the data into your warehouse, there's two ways to understand that data. Like, for example, if you want to do some analysis on your sales data, since you loaded that into your warehouse recently, just a second, open the SQL file. All right. So just to do a quick analysis on the sales data, I could do a couple of aggregations on the data from sales, just to understand group by on item, right? By order date, by their month. So just quickly, you can do some analysis, and upon analysis, for example, here, I ran this analysis and I'm like, okay, the data looks great, but there's also an option to visualize the results in Power BI directly. So pretty cool feature. Like if you continue, it would build a data set from the aggregations that you ran in T-SQL and create a Power BI report on the fly. So yeah, we could drag and drop. We could create your matrix. We could create bar charts, everything that Power BI offers, and then you can save it as a report and then show it, to the team who needs data analysis quickly on the fly to be able to make quick decisions. This is really a great feature to make quick analytical decisions from start till the end. As everybody might have seen, how easy it is to load data and then present that in Power BI. Also, for some who might be thinking, okay, I don't know, Suraj, this is too much SQL. I'm not very comfortable with this, but I'm more like, into visually looking at the data. I know what sales data looks like. I know all of these columns, but I want to, go from a graphical user interface. So there's also ways to do that, very easy. So there's a way to visually look at the data set. If it opens, we close this stuff. Open the wrong one. All right. So with this feature, you can easily create a new visual query right here on the top. If you're not comfortable with creating regular SQL statements on a SQL query window, with this query, you can choose your source and you can choose all of your aggregations in, like, for example, here on the top, you can choose the columns that you need to bring from the source, and you can choose how you want it to be sorted. You can do some transformations by, like grouping. You can insert a couple of steps. You can do your counts. You can do all kinds of operations like grouping by, and you can combine queries within here and then save this as a new view. So when you save it as a new view, it would show up as a new view, which you could create a Power BI report out of. So you really don't need to know T-SQL to be able to create a report from scratch. And I'll kind of like give you the visual way of loading data into the warehouse solution, which is I know I did talk about loading data via T-SQL, right? With the copy command. There's also another way you can do it if you don't want to go through all of the SQL stuff. You could create a data flow Gen 2, right? Just like how you would create a new warehouse, you would click on the data flow Gen 2 as a new service. So once you're in data flow Gen 2, it's going to ask you, okay, can you give me the connectors? Can you give me your source to what you're connecting to? And it is as simple as connecting the source in here, and all of the navigations that you see is right off of. So if you understand DAX or like in Excel, it's as easy as just navigating and just removing the columns, advanced editors, everything in here, keeping the rows. You can do everything from a graphical user interface, right? You could go to the transform tab, you could group by. So all of that, you don't need to understand all of this DAX that's going on. You could just do everything from a graphical interface. If for teams who are not comfortable with SQL coding. Saying that, so that's your Gen 2, right? That's your data flow Gen 2. It's that simple. Everything is very graphically friendly user interface for anybody who wants to get data from multiple various sources into your data warehouse engine. So that's kind of the overview of a warehouse and how you can load data into your warehouse using T-SQL and Dataflow Gen 2. And the other concept in Fabric is the lakehouse, right? With lakehouse, the difference between a warehouse and a lakehouse is with lakehouse, you can have files directly referencing in the lakehouse. So if you have big data needs and you really don't want to create a separate table like in the warehouse, you could reference, like Oscar said, these are the feature in a lakehouse where you can create a shortcut, right? So what a shortcut is a quick and a easy way to connect to external sources like a Azure Data Lake storage Gen 2 source or an Amazon S3 bucket, like I said. You could connect to these sources and it would act like a internal file system. So for example, you can browse those shortcuts within your Fabric engine and understand, okay, so these are all the backend tables that I have for that particular shortcut, right? And it would go in and it would understand, okay, so here are all the source files that's actually has the data. So this Parquet file has the data for the sales table. So this Parquet file, if you download this, this would have all the data for this. And the great concept about lakehouses is you don't have an engine that's going to be constantly running like the warehouse solution. So this works out a lot cheaper for a lot of customers who have machine learning, who have big data. They just have a lot of files that they want to like do quick analysis on. They don't want physical tables to be present. This is a great approach for customers who want to like get into quick analysis, machine learning, Spark, notebooks, using just raw files in the background. So once you connect these shortcuts, or once you have these files connected, as you can see, there is also a couple of JSON files, right, under the subfolder called Delta Log. So what these JSON files do is they keep a track of every change that happens on these main files. So you have a traceability. So you can go back in time at any point, saying that if I want to go back at 11:36 p.m. on this date, it would do more like a time travel to the past, and it would give your data set or the tables that you have in your lakehouse, which is nothing but references to these shortcuts. And these are not physical tables, everybody. These are just references to the files. They have just a metadata that's pointed to all of these files. So pretty cool stuff. You don't need an engine to maintain the lakehouse. It's just references to these files. So yeah, so that's the advantage of going with a lakehouse solution where you have big data needs and you really don't need an engine to be running stored procs or anything that you see currently in some of our on-premise systems. And also a great point I would like to note is how easy it is to open or create a Spark notebook directly from a reference. So I think I opened an existing notebook. So once you get in there, it is very easy to connect your notebook from your lakehouse and start querying. Like this is the Python PySpark code that it has automatically generated for me. So I could click on a table that's referenced from a shortcut, and I could click on load data and Spark, and it would create the Spark code for me. And then I could just run that, and it would take about 30 seconds for the Spark engine to spin up for the default environment. And the only difference between a lakehouse and a warehouses team is just, the amount of time that you're going to wait. This is going to be like 30 seconds delay to get kicked off on displaying what's in that data. Whereas in a warehouse, since I told you the engine is constantly running a dedicated engine, you're going to get instantaneous results. That's the only difference. So that's why this is used mostly for machine learning, for like vast analysis, whereas warehousing is more for, constant analysis and like, repeated results that you might need. So that's very simple to get from a lakehouse to a Spark notebook. And I think I covered a bit about shortcuts, and shortcut I think is a game changer in the industry. Just connecting to multiple different systems and not worrying about a migration team to just bring that data over to your local cloud provider or to your machine, SFTP, FTP, a lot of things can be avoided. Great feature of shortcut in the Lakehouse service within Fabric. So those are the two main concepts within Fabric, the Lakehouse and the warehouse. So once you get a good feel around the Lakehouse and the warehouse concept, like I said, these semantic layers or these semantic models are going to be created automatically. So what I mean by that is when you're creating a Power BI report, it is as easy as it is to create a new report and just manipulate. Like, for example, I created 10 minutes. And if I really want to understand what this report is made of, I can have the Power BI developers get in there, understand the new measures, all of the attributes, the data points that they need. They can modify this and they can publish this quickly. So it's really about collaboration and different teams getting together, and how easy it is to kind of collaborate and not wait on or like have like 5-6 different tabs or bookmarks to get to different services that you might need. Everything with a click of a button, like within the same workspace. So very friendly from a standpoint of integrating multiple services in one umbrella. So this is a quick Power BI report that I created. So all of the great features within Power BI, and let me show everybody another great feature. So if you go into this Power BI report, and if you say, so there's also an idea if you want to understand, like, for example, if you're a Power BI developer, if you're coming from a understanding of, hey, what is this data connected to? You can quickly view your semantic model. And here, now you know, okay, so this Power BI is connected to the Lakehouse. Okay, so now you know the lineage. So you don't need any more guessworks. So with this lineage, you can, literally get into that report, or you can, I think I clicked the wrong button, view the semantic. That's the report. Go back to the workspace. This is the semantic layers. If I click here, let me click here, right? And then once you're in here in the semantic layer, there should be a way for you to, I know it doesn't say open data model because it could be from the Lakehouse, but once you have it connected to the warehouse, you can open the data lake model, and then, you should be able to just view all the tables that's connected. And yeah, it should be a breeze for you to understand the semantic model. I'm trying to get to that, but sorry about that, team. I know we're running out of time. We only have like 12 minutes left, but it is that easy to get into your Power BI reports. Once you get into your Power BI reports, it is very easy to understand and open the data model. So look, this is what I was looking for. Sorry. So here is the data model. So once you open the data model, now you know exactly what tables are connected in this data model for your Power BI report. And the broken lines mean that this is just a reference in the Lakehouse, right? If it does not have the broken line, it means it's a physical table. But if it has the broken line, it means that it's a reference to a file in the Lakehouse solution. So yep, so that's pretty much the overview of most of the great services and how you could get from point A in just understanding the different source systems that we have. We need to get integrated into Azure Fabric to displaying it to a Power BI report quickly for any requirements that might arise. So I know I might not have time for all the questions, but feel free to update the Q&As, and I'm more than happy to. Or also, please reach out to your point of contact. More than happy to reach out to y'all one-on-one and explain more if there's any queries. Thank you. Thank you, Oscar. Thank you, John. Handing it back.
All right. Thanks, Suraj. Right now, we don't have any questions, but just wanted to thank Suraj and Oscar for walking us through that. It's pretty remarkable in a 30-minute demo that Suraj just went through. I think about even a few years ago, the amount of time it would have taken to get that much infrastructure in place to perform that analysis, and he's just clicking buttons and importing data in the matter of minutes. So pretty fascinating stuff. Really demos the power of Fabric itself. So still don't see any questions. So I'm just gonna give it one more minute, and then we'll wrap up. Going once, twice. All right. Well, just wanted to say thank you for. Oh, we have a hand, which I don't know if we can process.
I think you can allow microphone.
Okay, we might have an issue with the Q&A.
I think there is an issue with the Q&A because I got pinged by someone else.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to see if we can do the microphone thing here. All right, we're going to go to Ian. All right, let's see. Ian, you should be able to use your microphone now.
Yep, it looks like it worked. Hey, I just had a quick question. Does Fabric offer any kind of iPaaS infrastructure similar to like a Fivetran or anything along that line? Or is that still something kind of external to the Fabric?
Because this is the question for data movement, right?
Exactly.
At this point, we don't have any, I would say, services other than the ones that could be offered from the data factory side or the Azure pipeline side that you can spin up from Fabric inside Fabric, but you need to configure it, from which source into what target, right? If you're looking for a third-party tooling, we will be able to support those. I don't know if Fivetran is one of those at this point in time. I know they can land into different databases, but I'm not sure about OpenLake. But that's still like a third party that can connect into Azure endpoints for dumping the data.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Next up, Jenna. You can unmute now.
Okay, can you guys hear me now? Oh, perfect.
Yes, sure can.
Okay, I know you mentioned that in a data warehouse, you can create the views you can pick the columns and you can create views on top of the view. So it seems like you could run into duplication of data. So how do you go about the access? This is a big thing, a big landscape to make sure that we don't have people have access on this platform to this, on the other one you use the other piece, you have that access. It's very convoluted. I did not see Fabric offering anything to govern access, so you can run in some sort of mindset that you have everything in place. I don't know if I'm clear of what I'm asking, but
I can answer it quickly. I don't know if there is an option for you to see the chat, but there's a lot of information about security. But to answer in a nutshell, yes, you can constrain for certain groups and or users to read from certain views and also from certain rows and columns from those views as needed. So that's configurable in a per workspace and also in a per data warehouse or warehouse database, basis. So the answer is yes, you can. It's like if you are inside a database in SQL Server, you can constrain and say this set of tables and this set of views are only going to be queried by these users and or these groups. That's exactly how it works.
And so the warehouse, it sits on top of Synapse. What is the backup database? You said Synapse, correct?
It's no longer Synapse. It's a database that has its own mechanism for data redundancy that allows you to have all that data that you are creating and massaging inside the warehouse exposed as Delta Lake tables also in OpenLake architecture.
So can you do the update? Since, I think there was some limitation for Synapse before, so I think that, okay, sounds good.
Okay. Karthik, I'm going to allow your mic. You can unmute now. Karthik, if you're still there, you can unmute and ask a question. So we have a question in the chat. Is there any progress on a tool? Yep, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Sure, thanks, Karthik here. So GS Fabric has anything similar to Databricks or Snowflake Marketplace? So the
Marketplace.
marketplace is essentially.
Oh, so
Are
so you mean like where we can share our data set in a marketplace where someone can connect as if it was internal and use that data, right, Karthik?
That is correct. That is correct. Yep.
I don't think we have anything as of now, right, Oscar? We don't have a platform to share our existing data set or data for third-party consumption.
Essentially,
So
by
from Fabric, so let's put it this way: if you need to expose data from any of your Fabric services, I mean, OpenLake allows you to expose certain folders as needed to a group of users or to the open world if you put it in public, right? Because essentially, OneLake is a data lake store on steroids, right? It's like a OneDrive. So if you configure it in a section, a portion of your OneLake to be exposed to certain end users that could be third parties connecting to it, you can, and they can access that Delta Lake directly.
And yep. And to add upon Oscar's comment, part of the shortcut feature that I was talking about kind of makes it even more easy for you to connect to different systems. So for example, say if you have data shared in a different Azure storage account, it's very easy to create a shortcut, and then you can have access to their data directly into your systems rather than having to push it to a marketplace and then have everybody else consume. So you could open this, make it publicly available, and then you could have shortcuts that you could have like a data set made publicly available, like Oscar said, and you can have everybody connect to it using shortcuts on OneLake.
is there a roadmap to make a more mature marketplace like Databricks or Snowflake? Because I mean, I see what you're saying, Oscar, but this is more like a S3. I'm sharing my S3 bucket with somebody else, right? So it's not really a mature marketplace where data providers can monetize.
Maybe I'm not grasping the question exactly, but if you mention the data that gets updated must be exposed, right? I think those are the grounds of your question.
Yes.
So
Yes,
let's assume this use case. You tell me this is right. Use case. I have a set of I have a dimensional model that is updated every 5 minutes. This is an example that I want to get it exposed to third parties. Would that?
Right.
Okay. So yes, the answer is yes, because essentially what you're doing is you are updating Delta Lake behind the scenes, and that Delta Lake endpoint and the series of tables that resemble that dimensional model can be exposed to these third parties, right? Because it's just a pointer. I want this Delta Lake that is updated based on the updates and inserts happening on the warehouse. They are going to be reflected on those assets, and those can be exposed. Does that make sense?
Yes, great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We got time for just a couple more questions. So next question, Christopher, you should be able to unmute.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
We can now. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, you guys did a wonderful presentation. Fabric is definitely a great tool. Thank you for that. I did have a few questions on the data integration and the data warehousing. Is there a functionality to connect to maybe on-prem data sources? Or is it still we have to use like integration runtimes and things like that?
Absolutely. So in one of the slides I was presenting, right, you can create under the data factory inside Fabric, you can connect to any source, including on-premises sources. And of course, you need to have the connectivity in place, right? Maybe you might need to have an integration runtime running to expose that data, but any endpoint that has access from Fabric should be able to be you should be able to read from those sources into Fabric. And it could be, of course, going through an ETL process, or you can land them directly into Delta Lake, or you can land them directly into the warehouse, depending, of course, on the requirements. But the answer is yes.
Awesome. So it still uses the data factory integration runtime and things like that.
Yes, it does.
Awesome. Then one last question. The data storage pricing. Have you guys had any complaints about the pricing per hour, or has that ever come up as a concern?
On the storage side,
Yes.
so the storage side has a flat pricing per terabyte per month.
Okay.
And I don't have the price. I think $20, $31. I don't
It's
remember.
yeah, I think it is for the 1 lake rate, Oscar. It is 2 cents a gigabyte.
So that's really what it's how much it's going to cost you.
Got
Yeah,
it.
it's $2 a terabyte, I guess. Yeah.
No, the terabyte. All right. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? I know we've gone we're right at time. Wow. I don't see any other hands. I think Oscar may have gotten to most of the questions in the chat. If not, we'll finish those off. And oh, we got another. Karthik has another question. You want to unmute?
Oh, no, sorry. I didn't
Okay.
remove it.
All right, so we will wrap it up here. Just wanted to say thank you for everybody that took time out of their day. Hopefully you found some value in this. And if you have additional questions, think of something when you sign off here, or want to just do a deeper dive on Fabric, please reach out. As Suraj said, to your point of contact. We'll be happy to talk through this further. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
Thanks for inviting me, John. Thanks, Suraj.
Thank you.
So.
You folks take care.